Hello and welcome back. You are listening to Unreliable Sources, your bi-weekly briefing for mystery lovers, thriller junkies, and suspense addicts. I'm Mike Donohue, thriller author and TBR hoarder. Let's get into it. On today's show, we're diving into literary discoveries that have the crime fiction world buzzing. We'll explore why Boston makes such a perfect backdrop for crime stories, check out what's new and notable on shelves recently, and take a deep dive into our complicated relationship with serial killer fiction. Plus, as always, I'll let you in on what I've been reading and watching lately. Let's kick things off with some recent headlines from the crime beat. Literary treasures unearthed. In what feels like Christmas morning for crime fiction fans, we've got not one but two, quote, new works from masters of the genre. Raymond Chandler's previously unseen story has finally been published, a real find for hard-boiled fiction detective fans. And even more surprising, an unpublished Elmore Leonard novella called Picket Line was discovered last year in the USC archives and has now been published as well. While this novella is more social novel, about farm workers and unions, than crime novel, just getting fresh Leonard dialogue and characters after his death is genuinely exciting. It's like finding money in an old coat pocket, except the money is priceless prose. Boston's Criminal Appeal. Crime Reads published a great piece on why Boston works so well as a setting for crime stories. I might be a bit biased, living right in the city's shadow and setting one of my books, Hollow City, there, but I do tend to agree. The city's got everything a crime writer needs: deep history, stark class divisions, tight-knit neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone's business, and that particular brand of tribal loyalty that can be both beautiful and dangerous. From Robert Parker to Dennis Lehane and Chuck Hogan, writers have been mining Boston's mean streets for decades. There's something about that mix of old money and working-class grit that creates perfect conditions for noir. Hitchcock's literary legacy. Readers of the blog or regular podcast listeners know that I'm a big Hitchcock fan, and the Washington Post recently reviewed two new books examining how Alfred Hitchcock's classics came to be: Stephen Rebello's Crisscross, about strangers on a train, and Jennifer O'Callahan's Rear Window. Both films were crucial comebacks for Hitchcock at different points in his career. Strangers on a Train was adapted from Patricia Highsmith's first novel and helped revive his career after a slump in the late 40s. Rear Window came from a Cornell Woolrich short story and became one of his enduring masterpieces. It's a good reminder that some of cinema's best thrillers started as books, and that the master of suspense had impeccable taste in source material. If you've only seen the films, I highly suggest checking out the original stories. Finally, rest in peace, thriller novelist Thomas Perry. I was sad to hear the news of Perry's passing. He was an Edgar winner for his debut Butcher's Boy, and had a late career renaissance when The Old Man was turned into a Jeff Bridges vehicle for FX. The best compliment I can give is that I rarely read the synopses or blurbs of his thrillers because I just knew I'd be in good hands. He was always a pro that knew how to tell a good story. Now let's take a look at what's new and notable recently. The Librarians by Sherry Thomas. Set in a small branch library in suburban Austin, Texas, 4 quirky librarians, each hiding their own secrets, of course, find their quiet routines shattered when 2 patrons turn up dead after the library's inaugural murder mystery-themed game night. Never underestimate someone who knows the Dewey Decimal System and how to dispose of a body. Speaking of bodies, what about The Bodies by Ken Jaworski, a gritty Rust Belt thriller following 3 desperate lives colliding in struggling Locksburg, Pennsylvania. A single mom protecting her son, an autistic young man keeping a promise, and a musician on the run from a dangerous ex-con. Check out Jaworski's sophomore effort for some neo-noir with heart. The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman probably needs no introduction. The 5th Thursday Murder Club novel dropped this week, and if you've been following this series, you know Osman always delivers comfort food with genuine cleverness. These elderly sleuths have become beloved characters for good reason. One of my personal favorite series. This time the gang is tracking down a Bitcoin fortune while solving cryptic puzzles and dodging, dodgy people, as the Brits like to say. The Killer Question by Janice Hallett. Hallett continues her innovative approach to mystery structure. Her books use emails, texts, and transcripts to often tell the story, and this latest sounds like another puzzle box worth diving into. On screen, October is of course stacked with genre offerings, including some book-to-screen adaptations. The Black Phone 2 continues the story from Joe Hill's original tale, while Regretting You brings Colleen Hoover's 2019 novel to the screen. Netflix is also dropping their adaptation of Roald Dahl's The Twits, and there's a new, much-hyped Frankenstein on the way from Guillermo del Toro and starring Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, and Mia Goth. You know with del Toro that you are at least going to get an imaginative and visual spectacle. Moving on to this week's feature, let's talk about something that might make you a little uncomfortable: our fascination with serial killer fiction. It's everywhere: books, TV shows, podcasts, movies. But why are we so drawn to these stories about the darkest aspects of human nature? First, let's be clear about what we're discussing. Serial killer fiction is a specific subgenre within crime fiction that focuses on multiple murders committed by the same person over time. These aren't whodunits in the classic sense. Often we know who the killer is. The tension comes from the cat and mouse game, the psychological depth, and our attempt to understand the incomprehensible. The golden age of serial killer fiction really kicked off in the late 80s and 90s. Thomas Harris's Hannibal Lecter novels, particularly The Silence of the Lambs, of course, fundamentally changed the genre. Suddenly, serial killers weren't just faceless monsters. They were complex, intelligent, even charismatic characters. That book alone spawned countless imitators and established tropes we're still seeing today. But here's the thing. Our fascination with serial killers predates modern fiction. We've always been drawn to dark tales. Victoria England was obsessed with the Jack the Ripper. Medieval ballads celebrated notorious criminals. There's just something primal about trying to understand evil, to stare into the abyss from a safe distance. So why do readers love these stories? Probably a few reasons. First, there's the superficial puzzle element. Serial killer fiction often involves pattern recognition, code breaking, and detective work. Our brains love puzzles, and these stories deliver complex ones wrapped in high stakes. Safe fear. Reading about serial killers lets us experience fear and danger from the safety of our couch. It's a controlled thrill, like a roller coaster. We can close the book when it gets too intense. Understanding evil. There's a genuine desire to understand what makes someone capable of such heinous acts. These stories let us explore the darkest corners of human psychology without actual danger. The hero's journey. Often these stories focus on the investigators, the profilers, the detectives, the survivors. We're not just reading about evil, we're reading about courage, intelligence, and resilience in the face of all of it. But this genre isn't without its critics, and rightfully so. There are legitimate concerns about glorifying violence, desensitizing readers to real trauma, and exploring the pain of actual victims and their families. The line between thoughtful exploration and exploitation can be thin. The best serial killer fiction walks a careful line. Writers like Tana French, Chelsea Cain, and Thomas Harris at his best focus on the psychological toll, the impact on communities, and the humanity of both victims and investigators. The worst examples treat violence as mere splatter spectacle. There's also a gender dynamic worth noting. Many serial killer novels feature violence against women, which can feel exploitative. But interestingly, women make up a huge portion of true crime and serial killer fiction readers. Some theorists suggest this is because women are statistically more likely to be victims of violent crime, so these stories function as a form of threat assessment or learning to recognize danger. Modern serial killer fiction is evolving. We're seeing more diverse voices, more focus on victims as fully realized people, and more examination of the systemic failures that allow serial killers to operate. Writers are asking harder questions about who gets to tell these stories and why. If you're interested in the genre but want something thoughtful, I'd recommend The Poet by Michael Connelly for classic investigative techniques, My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyakon Braithwaite for a completely different take on the genre, In the Woods by Tana French, where the unsolved crime haunts the detective, or really anything by Tana French's Dublin Murder series. The psychological depth is very relevant. Or, finally, recent works by Alex North for atmospheric psychological horror. The key is finding writers who treat their subjects with gravity, who understand the weight of what they're depicting, and who have something to say beyond just shocking the reader. Serial killer fiction isn't going anywhere. As long as we're trying to understand the darkest parts of human nature, these stories will find an audience. The question is whether we can engage with these thoughtfully, carefully, critically, and compassionately. Okay, let's wrap up with what I'm reading and watching. Right now, I'm reading Hard as Nails, the third Joe Kurtz book by Dan Simmons. Simmons is better known for his longer, ambitious sci-fi works like Hyperion, but this early 2000 trilogy is something he did as a creative break and homage to Richard Stark's Parker novels. It's lean, mean, and a lot of fun just watching Simmons play in the hard-boiled sandbox, and I'm not jealous at all about how easy he all makes it appear. On audio, I've just finished The Absent One, the second Department Q novel by Jussi Adler-Olsen. I remember reading the debut way back when it was first published, but just somehow never continued the series. Maybe it's the translation, or maybe it's the writing style, but I'm really finding the Netflix adaptation more palatable, especially the characterizations and interactions between Carl, Rose, and Assad. I don't know, the show just clicks better for me than the books, which really doesn't happen all that often. On the TV front, I'm still catching up on past Slow Horses episodes, not binging anything, but just taking it slow and savoring the performances. I read the books that the first 4 seasons were based on, so there's no big surprises waiting for me. I'm just interested to see how they handle certain things on the screen versus on the page. And, of course, Gary Oldman continues to be perfection as Jackson Lamb. All right, that's it for this episode. Let me leave you with this week's question. What's your relationship with serial killer fiction? Do you love it, avoid it, or read it with complicated feelings? And if you do read it, what draws you in? The puzzle, the psychology, or something else entirely? Drop me a line with your thoughts. This is a topic where I genuinely love to hear different perspectives. You can email me, mike@mikedonahuebooks.com, or find me on Blue Sky @MikeDMystery, or on Instagram and Facebook @MikeDonahueBooks. This has been Unreliable Sources. I'm Mike Donohue. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay sharp, follow the clues, and don't trust anyone who skips to the end.